it is Julie. Welcome back to Pages and Pens. Today I am here with another video for you. It is the end of year bookish survey, and I found this on Books and Lala's channel, but it is actually from the Perpetual Page Turner. I am really excited to do the end of the year reading survey for a couple of reasons. Next year I'm going to be tracking, or this year in 2018, I'm going to be tracking a lot more of my stats, and I really want to have better information for you next year. I wanted to go over these questions because I found them really enjoyable and just give you some overall general like Goodreads stats and go over the end of my year and then start fresh in 2018 with a whole bunch of new stats for you. So we're going to go over these questions. There are a lot of them. I think there's 23 questions and a whole bunch of information to share with you, so I'm going to jump right in and try to do all of this without a battery dying or a camera overheating. We're gonna see how it goes, but get ready for a full 2017 reading bonanza. We're gonna go over some stuff. First up, we're going to go over question number 1, which is how many books did I read this year? And did I meet my goal? I had a goal of 100 books and I read 223 books, which according to Goodreads was 74,080 pages. 223 books is too many books to read in a year, guys. Too many. That will not be happening in 2018. I'm cutting it. Like, it's can't. It's a 100 book goal, and I don't want to go this high. I don't again. I'm happy with what I read. However, that's too many books. Yes, I met my goal. Yes, I was happy with my year, but my goals are going to shift in 2018. For question number 2, it was my most read genre. So I went through all 223 books on Goodreads and figured out what my totals were. So I read the majority of fantasy. Is anybody surprised? No. I read 78 fantasy books, but it was closely followed, more closely followed than I thought it was going to be by contemporary. I read 71 contemporaries, so only 7 more fantasy than contemporaries, which is surprising because I didn't think I was a big contemporary reader, but apparently I am. I also read 37 graphic novels, 12 thrillers, 8 sci-fi, 8 nonfiction, 5 classics, 4 poetry books, and 1 historical fiction. And again, I will be tracking all of that in 2018 on an actual spreadsheet, so I don't have to go through and count up 223 books. It was not fun. And then it wants to know my longest and my shortest book. So that was another thing that was on Goodreads, whereas my stats as far as my length. So the longest book was The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson at 781 pages. And I loved this book. You guys know I did. This was my first Sanderson series, the Mistborn series original trilogy, and I will be continuing with his work in 2018. And then the shortest book was actually a very close to the end of the year book, which was We Shall Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This was a gift from Dylan, and this was 52 pages. Also, really quickly, from Goodreads, I had my most popular book being The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, my average rating being 3.5 for the entire year. And my highest rated on Goodreads was You'll Miss Me When I'm Gone by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which you should all read. It comes out in January. I had a NetGalley arc, and it was phenomenal and diverse. It was centered around twins of Jewish heritage, and it goes over their Jewish heritage. Also goes over them getting genetically tested to figure out if they have their mother's Huntington's disease. It was really amazing. I really loved it. Back to the other survey that I should have been answering this whole time. So my favorite book that was published in 2017, I'm going with The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo because it's the only Leigh Bardugo book that I read this year, and you guys know that I love her. So this was by far my favorite. Again, another later in the year read. Came out earlier than I actually got to it, but I really loved this book. A, for the beauty of the book. B, because it's a signed copy. C, because it's Leigh Bardugo. D, because it's Grishaverse fantasy, and they were all feminist and empowering and amazing, and I loved them. Favorite debut novel of 2017 goes to The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This should come as no surprise. This was a fantastic debut this year. Everybody's talking about it, and for good reason. They should be. It is absolutely important. It will become an instant modern classic. It is phenomenal. I can't wait for the movie, and I can't wait to see what's next from her. My favorite book not published this year that I read this year, and that goes to The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This book was phenomenal. I did read the second of the series. I didn't love it as much as this one, but I did still love it, and I'm excited to read the third book coming up soon. I believe it comes out in 2018, but this book was just fantastic. It was one of my sci-fi reads. It was diverse. It was well fleshed out. The characters were so engaging, so deeply relatable and lovable, and I loved this book, and I can't say enough. I'm Becky Chambers. Love it, love it, love it. A book that lived up to the hype for me, and it's actually going to be an author instead of a book, and that is the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series by Laini Taylor. I have not gotten to Strange the Dreamer yet. It is a 2018 goal, but I have read the entire Daughter of Smoke and Bones trilogy, Night of Cake and Puppets, which is her little novella, and I love her writing style. I loved this series. I had heard a ton about it on BookTube, and it really did live up to the hype for me. This is a series that took me a while to get into. Even though I read them pretty close to each other, it still took me a little while to get into each book. However, it pays off. I just love her. I love her now. So she lived up to the hype for me. A book that did not live up to the hype to me this year was Wintersong by S.J. Jones. I pre-ordered it. I was ready for it. I was here for it. It was a Labyrinth retelling, reimagining. It was Goblin King. I thought I was gonna love this book. And maybe it was my own expectations that set me up for failure, but this book was not good. It just was not good. I think it suffered from trying to do too much and not focusing on the characters enough. I never really felt attached to Liesel. I never felt attached to the Goblin King. I think some of the best characters were some of the goblins that you saw down in there, especially her little handmaidens. But other than that, I couldn't like this book, and it bothered me that I didn't like it, but I deeply didn't like it. It's actually in my unhaul pile. A book that I felt like was the biggest accomplishment for me this year was by far Sarah J. Maas as an author. I had not read anything by Sarah J. Maas before this year, so 2017 was my year of Maas. I read her entire Throne of Glass series with the exception of the Tower of Dawn, and I read her entire Court of Thorns and Roses series, A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Mist and Fury. They're out of order, but you know what I mean. I started with this book, and I read through everything that she had published up until the Tower of Dawn. To read an author's complete works, minus one book, in 1 year felt like the biggest accomplishment because it was such a huge series. So for me to take on giant clunkers of fantasy novels, especially 2 different worlds within her writing repertoire, and read everything that she'd ever put out when there was already a ton published before I started reading them felt very daunting, but I took it on and I ran through them all, and it was my biggest accomplishment. But this by far was my favorite of all of her books. I love these novellas, and I never loved novellas, and I loved these novellas. Favorite character. This was a hard one because I loved a ton of characters. I immediately looked up to my 6 of Crows, but I read them last year, the year before, in 2016, so I couldn't count them for this year. So I'm going with Molly from The Upside of Unrequited because she is just so relatable and so sweet and so amazing, and I saw a lot of myself in her from back when I was younger, and I just loved her. She was very endearing. She kind of made this book for me, and I'm very excited. I've got Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda coming to me soon in a book order. I've not read it yet, but I'm really looking forward to reading more from Becky Albertalli, especially the Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera combo book. I love it, love it, love it, and I will be reading a ton more from her. Isn't Leah on the Offbeat from her too? I'm about it. I'm about all of it. My least favorite character. I'm holding this up because I didn't feel like pulling out the other book, Lady Midnight, but Emma. Emma Carstairs can suck a big fat one. I don't like her. She's horrific. And I don't like Emma and Julian together. Julian annoys me, but he has so many redeeming qualities based on the way that he's committed to his family that I forgive him for a lot of the other things that he does. But Emma is so unredeemable to me, so deeply unlikable to me. I can't with her. Emma is Yucksville. Most shocking book and or moment. No spoilers here, so you're fine. But my most shocking book I'm actually giving to All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. This book was so shocking to me, A, because of the content, but it's not a thriller, so it's not like a shocking thriller like, who done it? This is about a girl who is in a relationship with a man very, 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 very much older than her. I think she's 8 and he's in his 20s, and then it ages her all the way up until she's like 21. So it spans a whole bunch of time. I think it was so shocking to me because of everything it made me feel. You guys know I have a lot of thoughts on this book. I have a spoiler-free discussion on this. I also have a spoilery discussion on this. So you can tell I have a ton of tabs, a lot of thoughts on this book, just how deeply this affected me and how much it made me think and how much it still makes me think and makes me feel that this wasn't just like a shock and awe kind of thing, that it really made you question things and think about things differently, and I liked that. My favorite couple, or OTP, it's The Him Duology by Sabrina Bowen, and it's Jamie and Wesley. You guys know that I loved this book. I'll put the cover up here. It is a male-male romance based around hockey, and they're amazing, and I love them, and I ship them forever and ever and ever and always, and they're great. So go read that if you haven't yet, because they're phenomenal. They're so good. The best written book that I read this year, I am giving to An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, because this is a debut novel that blew me out of the water. I really loved it. I'm also giving it to this book because it's such a rich fantasy world with characters that are really well fleshed out and terrifying and endearing and strong and complex, and I love her as an author, and I just really loved this book. I thought that it was really impressive for a debut novel. I don't know if it's like the most beautiful in terms of like lyrically beautiful, but I was just really impressed with her writing, so I'm giving it to her. The book that I pushed the most people to read, this is a toss-up, honestly, between the Wicked Lovely series by Melissa Marr, which is coming up a little bit later in this survey, but I'm gonna go ahead and just say the Hollow series by Kim Harrison, which is like the Rachel Morgan series. I talk about this all the time. You guys know that I absolutely love it, and a lot of you have picked it up or picked it up again and reread it because of me, and I love that because it is like my favorite urban fantasy, paranormal fantasy, witchy, demony, Jenks. Just Jenks. I don't know. I just love the series. I feel like I talk about it a ton, so I think that this is one that you guys probably know me as, because The Labyrinth is something that I love, but not necessarily a book that I can guide you guys towards. So you guys know I'm obsessed with The Labyrinth, but I think this is what I talk about the most. If you feel differently, if you think that I have pitched you guys towards a certain book more than this series, definitely let me know down below, because I'd be really interested to know about it. But I think this is probably the one that I've guided you guys towards the most. My favorite book cover of the year is actually an ARC that I read that doesn't come out until January of 2018, but I read it last year, so I'm counting it because it's gorgeous. It's The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, and there's all these little hints and signs and things within the cover. I love that it's soft feel. I love that it's got gold and silver. It's just aesthetically pleasing to me. I really love this cover, so this is what I am giving it to for 2017, because that's when I read this ARC. And I think the final hardback cover actually does look like this. I don't know what the like naked hardback looks like underneath. I don't know if there's anything special about it, but this is like, this is great. Favorite adaptation. So the favorite adaptation that I read this year is Tiger Lily by Jodi Lynn Anderson. I love Peter Pan, and I loved this as like a feminist, diverse Peter Pan retelling from like Tiger Lily's standpoint. Really loved it. Book that made me cry the most was Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. For such a short little book, man, guys, I cried. I cried so much. The Smell of Other People's Houses by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock. The two of these are super tiny little books, but holy moly did I cry, guys. Like, I cried a whole bunch, and I'm not even sorry about it, because they're just beautiful. And then the book that made me laugh the most has to go to I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young. This is so funny. It is brutal and just absolutely gory, but colorful and hilarious, and Gertrude cracked me up every step of the way. She's freaking hilarious. New favorite author that I discovered this year, I'm going to go with Sabaa Tahir. Also going to go with Angie Thomas, who's buried over there, but I loved Angie Thomas, and Becky Chambers and Sabaa Tahir are by far like my faves of this year that I have discovered, and I think that they're all just phenomenal, and I love that they're all women. My guilty pleasure read of the year is definitely this Royal series by Erin Watt. It starts with Paper Princess, goes through all the other ones. I had like a full review of the first 3 books. The 4th book is not included, but I have read that since then. I've also read the Wattpad book that she like updates every now and then, so I'll have that review linked up above. Kylie Scott Lick series, Play series, Lick, Play, Stage Dive series, that thing. all of that. The favorite book that I've reread this year definitely goes to the Wicked Lovely series by Melissa Moore. This is a Fae series that I read forever ago. It's amazing, and it's really funny how much this stuck with me. I read this years and years ago and hadn't thought about it in a really long time, and then started writing my new book and realized my main character's name was the same as the girl in this book. And I'm not even sorry about it, so I'm just gonna give a shout out to Melissa in my acknowledgements because I loved it. So it's a great series. I'm going to continue it this year because I found more books in her world and then other Fae books that she wrote. So I'm going to be reading a lot more from her in 2018, and I'm very excited about that. And then the last question, we're at the end, guys, is were you happy with my reading for the year? Yes, I was. I was happy with the amount that I read, even though it was a ton. I, for the most part, had a lot of really great books that I read, but I also got very discerning about DNFing, being very honest with my reviews, giving honest, raw opinions on books that are controversial or popular. I had no problems giving 1 and 2 stars. I had no problems just telling you what series I thought were overhyped. Overall, really felt like I honed in on what I love in a book. I think I can really then gear that towards reading more books that I love in 2018. Overall, a great reading year, and will I do anything different in 2018? Yes, I'm going to read a lot less. I hope to read considerably less than 223 books. I hope to annotate a whole lot more. I did annotate a few books this year, but my goal is to read slower, read deeper, annotate more of my books so that my library looks like it's my library with my thoughts in them. I don't want to read 223 books that look like they've never been touched, or that I can barely remember, or that I flew through so quickly that the minutia was lost on me. I want to spend a lot of time on the books I'm reading. I want to like mark them up, make them my own, tab them up, talk to you guys about them. I think that's my biggest change for this year. I also plan on tracking a lot more stats this year so that come next year I can sit down and go over with you guys a lot more about what my reading looked like. So that's my goals for 2018. That has been the end of the year reading survey. I look forward to doing this next year and comparing it to what this one looks like. If you guys love these kinds of stats, if you're excited about the new in-depth stats that I'm going to give you next year, let me know. If any of these books made your best or your worst, or you had thoughts on any of the questions or my picks, definitely let me know those as well. Honorable mentions that didn't make it to this list were the Deanna Madden series. Loved the heck out of that series. Also Mistborn, I really, really, really loved this year. So yeah, I read a ton of really great stuff this year. Very excited about that. Happy to let go of everything that I didn't love and to continue to just build a collection of books that make me genuinely happy. That's it for this video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, be sure to give me a big thumbs up, click subscribe, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye guys.